which is the strategic planning overview. We are very happy this evening to have Dr. Judith Wilson joining us to talk about her approach to strategic planning and to, I think, answer any questions that the board might have. Dr. Budd, do you have anything you want to add to that before I welcome Dr. Wilson?
Sure. In working toward the district goal of engaging the whole community in a strategic planning process, Dr. Wilson is at the lead of this kind of work. Her reputation speaks for itself. I will focus on the fact that she is, prior to becoming a consultant on strategic planning and working with boards of education, she was 18-year superintendent in New Jersey, both Woodbury, New Jersey, and Princeton, New Jersey, and comes with a wide range of experience. The board knows this, but I'll clarify it for those listening, that the board's or the district's prior strategic plan was from approximately 2016 through 2020. And the prior board made a decision to wait for the new strategic planning process until there was a settled superintendent and we were at least on the cusp of ending a pandemic. I know that seems hard to say at the moment, but that is what brings us here. We obviously have other key issues we're working on at the moment, but engaging in strategic planning is really important. And so that's why we had this as a presentation item tonight, so that Dr. Wilson could present her recommended process, answer board questions, and get feedback. And I see she's joined us by video. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Dr. Budd. And Dr. Wilson?
Good evening. How are you?
Welcome. I found you on my screen. Welcome.
Yeah, it bumps around a little bit. Yes.
So I'll turn over to you to give a little overview, and then maybe you can answer any questions that the board might have.
Happy to, and I'm very happy to join you this evening. I need to say that, as Dr. Budd noted, I was a superintendent for many years, and I depended upon, leaned upon, and appreciated my board members, but I cannot imagine how true that is for superintendents in the last 19 months. So thank you for your service and for that really healthy discussion of the last almost 2 hours that you had with your community and your medical advisors. I'm grateful that you are a board that was able to handle that discussion and the last months with perspective, right? Holding on tight to a balanced perspective and being able to stay so student-centered. It's really impressive. And I work with a lot of boards in 4 states, and I cannot say that about too many right now. So thank you for that, and for your attention to the data, the details, but really staying student-centered. I shared a proposal with your board and your school leaders about your interest in taking a new look at where you might go with deep focus in the next years. I know that it's been a day-to-day, right? For 19 months now, we have really been day-to-day, week-to-week. And in some ways, at some point, you might feel that your mission, your values, your belief statements, which are so well crafted, of course, were always there. They were really what was guiding you through all of these other decisions in the last year and a half. But some things did have to slow down out of necessity, right? And some things did have to maybe even go on pause. You also had a change in leadership and have gotten a lot of traction and motion with leadership in the last year and a half. And so now you find yourselves at a point of perhaps being able to think forward a bit more and to maybe reinvest your time and energies in some future-centered thinking. Always student-centered, right? But some future-centered thinking and leadership. So with that, I'll just share a little overview and then take your questions. It's been my privilege to work with many districts, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut only. But many districts in the last 7 years do a lot of executive coaching for school leaders, but I also work on strategic plan facilitation. And the reason I do that is because quite clearly from the research, but also from experience, we know that focus and clarity of goals and persistence with goals is really what yield success, right? Improvement, mission-driven, purpose-driven advancement in the work that we want to do for our children. And I know you've seen that at Beecher Road School. I know certainly as a community, you're very invested in that forward-thinking work. I want to say that there are many school districts, of course, that ricochet from goal to goal, that think that every September there has to be a new set of goals because it's September in a new school year, that aren't persistent enough with deep work. Faculty members sometimes feel the pressures of that, not being able to embed their learning or apply their learning for long enough before there's something else new, another initiative. And so in helping people really think about goals that are meaningful, high yield, high impact, matter to almost all of the children, not just a few, in the best cases, all, and really have the energy of adults behind those goals in terms of people seeing the value, wanting to be literally tethered, right, to goals that anchor them and that allow them to become deeply knowledgeable and have time for application and reflection. How much more meaningful and valuable that work is on behalf of our children. So the processes that I lead, I will only work with an inclusive model, one that has great voice for everyone who is impacted, meaning your children, all of your adults who are employees in the Woodbridge School District, parents of every child, and community members without children in the schools. In the case of the children who have graduated from your school and gone on to the middle school and high school, I would really think that we would be able to include some of their voices as well to reflect upon the experiences they've had and what they've learned as a result of being middle school students and early high school students. We know too that children need and want something different right now, right? They have learned to be independent learners in a lot of cases. They know they can learn about or how to do whatever they would like with the technology in their hands, whenever they would like. Their interests and passions have exploded. And while we still want core skills, essential skills for them as critical thinkers and creative thinkers, we also know that schools have changed, schooling has changed, and there are new lenses through which we might want to see the work that we do. So that said, this process is usually highly inclusive, takes about 5 months beginning to end. It does start with surveys, focus groups, individual one-to-one interviews, and then moves to a core planning team to really hone in on, again, the high impact work that can be done. Not 16 goals, 2, 3, on rare occasion 4. And we don't look 10 to 20 years. We look 3 to 5 years, and we start with action plans that are only 18 months. We can all wrap our heads around 18 months. Certainly faculty members and assistants in classrooms can take their current knowledge and skills and think about 18 months for their children. And beyond that, we want to be able to then, maneuver, have flexibility, adjust from what we've learned and adjust from our reflections. And so you are in line in terms of timing so that you could have your goals established and your first 18 months of action plans written easily around the time of spring recess, certainly by the end of April. Be ready for summer work in professional learning and in perhaps even programs for students. Be ready for the budget of your next school year and be ready to do a full launch for July 1st. I think that while it could seem overwhelming right now, I'm very, very sensitive to what faculty members and school leaders are most consumed by right now. But I also have to say, I think there is, and there will be more so as we head into winter and spring, an eagerness to reflect and to really think about what we've learned in the last 2 years about our children, about teaching and learning, really take stock of current research and put our collective thoughts together to really ask the hard questions about where we are and where we would like to go with this critical work for our students. I think I'm open to all questions, of course, and interested in whether it's a technical question or an overarching philosophical question about the planning, anything that you would like to ask.
Great. Thank you very much for that overview, Dr. Wilson. Appreciate it. I'm going to, if it's okay with you, I'm going to go through our board members, and anyone who has a question then can have the opportunity to ask you. I'm going to start with Brooke. Do you have any questions, Dr. Wilson, tonight?
No, I do not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. David, do you have any questions?
No, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Erin?
I just have a one quick question, and it's related to my question about the other surveys, which is when you get this survey data, you get a ton of information about our school, and is the board privy to that raw data, or do you only present it to us in a summarized version? And I guess I ask that because I'm very cognizant right now that we're doing all of these surveys and people are spending their time putting in a lot of qualitative data that they are assuming, I think, potentially that multiple people are reading and integrating into their thought processes. But if all of that qualitative data is just being summarized when it comes up to the board, then we're not actually hearing a lot of the narratives of our community that might help us to make decisions.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it is shared. First of all, the surveys are anonymous and they do come directly to me. However, in this process, there is a core team of strategic planners, right? Thinkers who come together. They represent a cross-section of your community, internally within the schools and externally across your community. Those folks see all of the raw data, all of it, and they'll sift through it. They'll make sense of it, right? They'll look for the trends so they'll get quantitative data in terms of, I also want to say these surveys on average take about 12 minutes, right? So we're not surveying people, asking them to spend a half hour on a survey. The best information comes from the open-ended questions because people will share recommendations. They will be specific about their hopes. They will recommend goals that they would like to see the board embrace and endorse. And so I guess the short answer is yes, right? The quantitative data is summarized. In terms of one-to-one interviews, which I conduct, I do summarize those, but they're not attributed to any individual. And again, I'm looking for trends and patterns and great ideas that get fed to that core team of folks.
Thank you. That was
Thanks
my
for the
only
question.
question, Lynn.
Thank you, Erin. Jay, do you have any questions for Dr. Wilson this evening?
I do. I have two very short ones. The first one is I get the sense that you want to try and include many stakeholders in this process.
Absolutely.
And so you've got different opinions and you've got different levels of experience. You've got teachers, you've got board members. So how do you distill that or advise a board on how to distill that to 3 or 4 common goals or objectives? For example, are they driven by community initiatives? Are they driven by professional development that teachers might have conducted or will conduct? Is it driven by trends in, say, the marketplace of what schools are doing? I'm trying to figure out how this lens that you've just mentioned to me comes about.
Yes. So first, a point of clarification that, there's a separate survey for each stakeholder group. So that could be 9 different versions, right? Where the same types of questions will be asked. So you'll know this is our faculty input, right? This is our parent input. This is our student input, etc. Secondly, the points which you raised about sources. Yes, we take current research, right? Yes, we look at aspirational school districts. So, of course, on your Connecticut assessments, your mastery tests, etc., Woodbridge does extremely well. We want to go beyond that, right? And we do want to always have aspirational districts on our radar screen, right? Connecticut schools or elsewhere. We want to know what we think those cutting edge districts are doing that might be of great service to our students and our staff. And certainly professional learning is always a cornerstone. So there's a professional learning aspect to everything we work on, right? Because our work is obviously only as great as our talent. You have very talented faculty members who have student-centered, done great work already. So their ideas are very rich when it comes to this as well. But it is a meeting of the minds, right? So when this core group is together, looking at the data, thinking about the possibilities, they hear each other, teachers, board members, parents, probably a high school student or 2. It's usually their voices that set us all straight in the end, I have to say. And people have to get beyond, there are 10 ideas on the table. They are all good ideas. They are all sound. Which ones truly are the highest leverage, most meaningful, needed right now for us? And that might look very different. Culture, climate needs are different. One school district to the next, whether you're 1,000 miles apart or adjacent communities. What you need, the work that you're ready for, the work that you want to tackle is different than next door and different than across the country.
So I asked this question because of 2 reasons. So I know the school has a vision, it's got objectives. We just saw a district plan recently. We saw goals set by the school and the administration. And so I see that as a foundation. And so are we sort of trying to bridge what our aspirations are with this foundation, or do we build on the foundation? I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah, so as I read your current mission, value statements, beliefs, I mean, I really do think that there might be something that people might want to add or tweak, but you've got a very good foundation there, right? They're well written, student-centered, they are aspirational, but I think they're a solid foundation. You are not starting, this is not a deficit model, right? You're not starting about gaps and needs. You're starting with what now, what next, what makes sense. Without that, you will do fine day to day, week to week, year to year. But by fine, I mean you will move along, right? When you have specific goals that are known by everyone, shared and long-term, you'll be in a very different place for acceleration of the important work that you want to do. And I don't prescribe that work, right? That's not me. I facilitate this process for you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jay. Jeff, any questions or comments?
No questions, but thank you for your time.
Of course. Good to be with you.
Maria?
I don't have any questions, but thank you again for your presentation.
Of course.
Mike?
Happy to.
No questions from me. Thank you.
Sarah Beth?
No questions. Thank you.
Great. I think we got through everyone. Don't see any hands that they came up with another question. Dr. Budd, I'm going to throw it back to you, I think. I don't know if you want to talk about a timeline or the next steps in any way.
No, Lynn, actually I don't, but thank you for throwing it back. I don't have enough information at the moment. When Dr. Wilson and I have spoken, there is some relation between the timing of starting this and where we are in, if you will, the pandemic curve in terms of the capacity for administration and staff and even board members to really engage in this at a time when we're not also trying to worry about masks at recess and really timely topics. So I would have information for that to share with you in upcoming weeks, but we had this on the agenda for tonight so the board would have a general sense of where we'd be proceeding and with whom in future months.
Perfect.
And Jonathan, if I may just add on to that, I just want to say, don't rush. Your principal was so responsive in thinking about the needs of children and teachers right now and issues of social and emotional wellness, issues that we're seeing all across the state in terms of, I'm just going to say, a prolonged adjustment this year, right? That in August, we were probably all hopeful that the adjustments for students and children might be a few weeks. And, we know that we're months in this work now. And so no need to rush. We want to do it well, but you want to do it when people have the bandwidth and the capacity to do the work. So I'm here when you're ready, but I really do think that people everywhere in schools are giving us 110%, not without angst, not without day-to-day worry, and be careful of too much too soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for those comments. I certainly appreciate that. And I think that I'm speaking for the rest of the board who don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed by this task, because in doing it, if you're overwhelmed, it's not going to be done well. So I appreciate those comments for sure. And I thank you so much, Dr. Wilson, for joining us this evening and being able to share with us your ideas and thoughts of how this will proceed. So thanks so much.
Happy to be with you all. And again, thank you for your good work. And I'm glad no one asked me why my office was so messy. I think I'll go see about that. Okay. All right. Thanks so much.
Have a good evening. Thanks. Wonderful. We're moving on. 3.A.4. No, I'm sorry. 3.A.3. Special education update. Cheryl. You're on.
I'm going to share us. She's going to take over at my computer in one moment, Len, but let me just share my screen first, please.
Perfect.
This presentation, board members, you've received earlier, but it's also in board book, if you were looking for it there.
And we can see that, Jonathan, so that's great.
And before I switch places with Cheryl, I just want to introduce the first couple of slides here to underscore that one of the main reasons we have a presentation tonight on special education in the district is because of the importance of educating every single student well. And from that perspective, we have really three goals that Cheryl's designed her presentation around. One is to help all board members have the common understanding of key elements of special education law, because nearly everything Cheryl will talk about is legally mandated. But then also to use that to highlight some specific areas of our special ed programming here in Woodbridge. And then to really open the floor from Cheryl's perspective to answer questions from board members related to special education. To just introduce the next slide, and then Cheryl will take it from here. We have a little bit over 12% of our population at Beecher Road School, students who have individualized education plans, IEPs. If that number 12.3% strikes you as high, Cheryl's going to clarify that it is below the state average. There are some increases over time, and she will also talk to you about some of the recent increases we've seen over the past few months. But we're talking about 104 students here, each one of whom is precious to us. They are the child of somebody in our community, and we want to do right by that student each and every day. So with that, I'm switching places, and Cheryl will pick it up from here.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to get a chance to speak with you about the students at Beecher, as well as the legal mandates that we are responsible for following. You'll see here on this grid that we have increased our students. Obviously, we have a large number of students here at Beecher, but our percentage of students with disabilities has increased every single year. And that is not any different than what's been going on in the state. Currently, well, using last year's numbers, it was 15% is the average for students with disabilities in each school district. And they have not yet released to the public what the percentage is for this year. So looking at currently where we are, we're at 12.3%. And based on prediction of numbers of students that we're aware of currently, as well as knowing what students we have going on to the middle school, this is an approximate of what we assume we will be getting this upcoming school year. Into our special education law to understand everything that we do is very much protecting the families and the students for whom we work. And the most important thing, we talk about budget, we talk about the impact on everything, but I think I want to start off with all of the amazing things that we do with our students. And I don't know that people who aren't in the schools may not realize our goal is to meet the diverse needs of all of our students with those individualized programs, what they need above and beyond the general education program. We have students who are learning how to speak. We have students who came to us who were not speaking and then now might be speaking in full sentences. I mean, that's just something to completely celebrate. Certain students who struggled with reading, they might have dyslexia, or they may just be slower at learning to read and they need that individualized instruction, and they are now readers. Students learning to socialize and interact with their peers, that maybe those social skills are an area of weakness for them, and there we have instruction to help those students. Helping in the area of math, gaining number sense, counting, multiplication, division, or whatever it is that they need, they're working on those skills. In occupational therapy, we have students who are learning how to write and form letters and hold a pencil grip, how to zipper a coat, tying shoes, and even how to feed themselves. So, I mean, the area is vast of what people are working on. And students are learning how to walk, skip, hop, jump, run, all of those different areas. I've been asked in the past about explaining what differentiated instruction is and how that all fits in. Differentiated instruction is, if you can see the highlighted areas, this is a definition. Carol Ann Tomlinson is kind of the guru when it comes to differentiated instruction. And it's really all about making a chance to differentiate the content, process, product, or learning in different environments. So you take one task, and then you might be having a different outcome that the students might have to do a different product that they create. So that is in the general education classroom. You'll see that a lot where they're changing how the projects are done, maybe changing a little bit of the process and how something is being presented to them. Typically, if you get into special education, you're doing more of a modification or an accommodation. With the law, in 1975, that is when the Education of All Handicapped Children Act came through. Every 5 years it is reauthorized, and you might hear the term FAPE. One thing you'll see in this presentation, there are a lot of acronyms in the world of special education. It's kind of an alphabet soup. So we try to make sure that we are explaining those and not using just the acronyms, but you will hear the term FAPE is providing a free and appropriate public education to all students with disabilities. That's our task. We are obligated to do that and is the right thing to do. But if you hear something, a student, did the student get FAPE? Yes, free and appropriate public education. Understand all of the steps of this. We have a whole referral process. There's a scientifically research-based intervention team where students are getting intervention. There's different tiers of that and very involved process. So if a student is getting the survey process and responding to intervention, that's the goal. That's what you want to happen. But if a student is not making the progress that they need, and they change interventions, they increase the intensity, and they feel that there's something else going on, they're not meeting the needs of the student, then they'd refer to special education. It might come from a parent or the 504 team where a student is receiving accommodations, but they really need, the team feels that's not enough for them to be able to access the general ed curriculum. They need more specialized instruction, then they'd do a referral for special education. Birth to 3, students who are coming to us at 3 years old, they would also make a referral in which we'd meet and talk to the teams that have been working with them to review whether they're needing special education services at Beecher or not. And also, we also have students who move into district who have an IEP. So there's a referral with that to intake them into our system. And placement team, also known as a PPT. An interesting little fact is we are the only state that uses the term PPT. Everyone else calls them IEP meetings. And you have your referral. With that, every single thing we do has a timeline. So if we receive a referral, we have 10 school days to have that planning and placement team meeting. Even minor details, but it's important, is parents should be given 5 days notice. You want to mutually pick convenient times to have those meetings. The PPT is convened with the required team members. So there are specific members of the team that we must have included, including parents. They're an integral part of this whole process. And the team members include parents, administration, teachers. You have the staff that are called the pupil services. So that's more the related services like speech and language. Special education teacher. So you must have certain components to have it qualify as an accurate meeting. There's an entire process. If the team determines that an evaluation is warranted, then they would plan an evaluation, and it needs to be comprehensive and looking at all areas of concern, looking at the whole child and what they might need. You come back later within 45 school days and have an eligibility determination. Actually, it's before that. It's usually about day 30 to day 40 because you need to implement by day 45 if the student is eligible for special education. If they are eligible, the team develops what's called an IEP, or an individualized education plan. And that will have goals and objectives. The way it's developed is they look at the needs of the student, and there's a correlating goal and objective specifically relating to that to address those needs. Everything is progress monitored and tracked, and parents receive updates every marking period, the same as the report card. We have timelines for everything, so we're making sure that we are doing things by the book as the guidelines prescribe to us. Every student has an annual review. Every year we must review the process. With that said, that does not mean that we don't have multiple meetings for some students if we need to make adjustments to their IEP. And every 3 years, we must evaluate students again to determine if they continue to be eligible for special education services. There also is a good chance to update and see what other changes there might need to be if they continue to be eligible. Again, everything is completely individualized. So if people say, well, what services do you offer at Beecher Road School if they're looking to move to Beecher? It depends on what the needs of the student are, and that's how we develop what their plans are. On IEPs, the individual education plan, the state has different areas of criteria for eligibility. These are just the listing of all of the different areas. You'll see that I did star next to dyslexia. Connecticut was the first state to have dyslexia as an identification area and there were a lot of parents and educators in the area who really were behind this and making sure that that was identified, because students with dyslexia do need specialized instruction. On an IEP plan, it's a written document that identifies the needs. One important thing that's really critical for people to understand that it's legally binding. When you create this, if a family moved away to California, that school would have to take that document and they would have to implement what is there. Within 30 days, you do meet and adjust based on how they're doing in your school environment, and you may make changes to that. And we talked about it being annually it's reviewed, as well as eligibility determination every 3 years. You have special education services, but there is also related services. So this is areas such as articulation and speech and language development for receptive and expressive language, phonological awareness, which is one of the key components of the foundation for reading, and pragmatic language, which is more having to do with the social skills in interacting with other students. So the interesting thing about speech and language is it can be a special education service, or it could be a related service. So if a student is identified, for example, with dyslexia, they may also have needs to receive some special education related services in speech and language. Occupational therapy, also known as OT. This is where you might be looking at fine motor and visual perceptual skills. So our occupational therapist is looking at data and looking at the performance, and might be observing in a classroom and looking at what they need to access in general education. So it might be something working on the grip of a pencil, how to form the letters, how to, there might be some regulation with self-regulation with sensory skills. So all of these different areas our occupational therapists would focus on. Another area is our physical therapist, and this is gross motor skills. And our physical therapist basically looks at anything having to do with, in order for students to qualify in this area, safety, accessibility, and mobility in the school environment. So it is different than a medical model of physical therapy. It is school-based physical therapy. Very important piece of what we do every day is least restrictive environment. To the maximum extent, we have to include students with disabilities in with their typical developing peers, and it has to be what's appropriate for them. So as you can see with the quote here, removal of children with disabilities from the regular education environment, it's only when their severity of their disability requires them to be with educated in another setting. So an example of that might be every attempt is made to have the student included with their typical peers in the general education classroom. If they need, for example, specialized instruction in reading, where they're working on decoding, and really a program, an approach that they need is very specialized, they might be doing that in a resource room instead of doing that in the general education classroom, because it's completely different what they're needing than what the classroom is doing. If we have tried everything possible, exhausted everything we can, there are some situations where we cannot meet the needs of every single student. Even though we have incredible staff who are doing wonderful things and working with the students, there are some students we just cannot meet their needs in the public school environment. So we do work with an out-of-district school, and the student would attend that, and we oversee that program, and we're a part of that process. The special education programming here at Beecher and in Woodbridge Public Schools, we have a team of special education staff. So you can see right here, it includes myself and the administrative assistant, who does all of the notifications, setting up the meetings, organizing all of the paper documents, making sure families are getting information in a timely manner, supporting the entire paperwork end of things, as far as some state reporting that we have to do. So there's a lot of information to do with that position. The special education teachers are working with the students on a daily basis, doing the evaluations, as well as implementing those services. And the list goes on with all of the specialized people that we have working in the department, including our teaching assistants, who are there with those students day in, day out, supporting them, helping to implement the IEP. And you'll see, and all the way down, our BCBA, Board Certified Behavior Analyst, is contracted through ACES currently, but is very critical with supporting the staff in our classroom to help support appropriate behaviors for the students. And on the last bullet, last but not least, is our librarians and technology specialists support our students who are gifted and talented. I'll be talking more about that in detail. We also have a preschool program for our 3 and 4-year-olds, and this is mandated for students who are identified as needing special education services. And we do have typically developing peers who come in and they act as role models, and they play with the students, and they're modeling language and social skills. And these families do pay tuition to attend a preschool, and it's a pretty incredible program. So these students, they have to be residents of Woodbridge, and it's done through a lottery. We have started some specialized programs based on the needs of the students that we were seeing in order to build capacity in our school and to allow the students to have access to the peers in their home school. So if a student is outplaced, they do not have access to their typically developing peers because it's only students with IEPs and the out-of-district placements. So we have a primary skills classroom, intermediate skills classroom, primary social emotional learning classroom, as well as an intermediate social emotional classroom. This is where you'll see a lot of our one-on-one teaching assistants assigned because these students have much higher needs and need the supports. And it is not like there's one specific way or model that this works. The students are getting what they need. So one student might be able to be in the general education classroom for 15 minutes a day. Another student might be in the general education classroom for 70% of the day. It's really very specific to what needs they have and what supports they need. Programming. We are obligated by the state of Connecticut to identify and to evaluate students who are considered gifted and talented. And referrals can come from anywhere. It might be coming from the classroom teacher. It might be one of the administrators or a parent who's making that referral. And so we do have a program. We have, as I spoke before, our librarians and our technology specialists this year will be joining them to provide this service, which is pretty exciting. And when you talk to them about it, the energy level, the excitement about what they're going to be doing with these students, it's outstanding. They are broken into grade level cohorts. And so they will be pulling out of their general education classroom, working as a group, and they'll be doing divergent thinking, problem solving, collaboration. So an example might be novel engineering, where they read a novel and then they take that and they find a problem in the story and they work to a solution. They might be building or creating something from that solution. And this is, right now, it's going to be done servicing the students in a 6-day cycle. They'll be meeting with them one time per week. However, there's extensions that they'll be doing at home, so it's not just that time period during the day. In conclusion, we have found that there has been quite an impact on the pandemic in special education. We have had a large increase of new referrals to special education, and we have had an increase in difficult behaviors. So that has been an increase for us this year. We've had many families who are relocating with their children from out of state, from in the state. I think just with COVID, families are changing, being around family, moving away from the city. And so we have had an increase of students moving in with IEPs. And the thing that has had we've had to be flexible. Staff are also being careful about not coming in if they have a sniffly nose or something. And so having to be flexible and adjust, and someone may be assigned as a grade level TA, but they're coming in having to support if someone is out. So it's really been a team effort, and everyone really has put 100% effort in and putting students first. And we had a video, but we're going to send that to you, to the board privately. We're having trouble with it downloading properly, but basically every single day we're celebrating, whether it might seem like a small success. Someone might have, oh my goodness, they can now decode CVC words. Might sound like, oh, it's not a big deal, but it's an enormous task. Or someone might have taken their first step, or they said their first word. So every step is a large step, and we have to take the time to celebrate those things. And we've had students who've increased 4 grade levels worth in reading. We've had students who could not be included more than 5 minutes in the general education classroom, who then are working successfully in the general ed classroom for 80% of the day without support. So it's really a chance for us to meet the needs of our students, celebrate those successes, as well as following the state and federal mandate guidelines. And now I'd open it up to any questions you may have. I know that was a lot of information I just threw out at you. We live it every day, but there's so many parts to it, but I'd love to answer any questions you may have.
Cheryl, thank you so much for that really comprehensive overview of special education. Thank you for your time preparing it and for what you do on a daily basis in that department. Appreciate that. Brooke, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Cheryl. That was very, very informative. I am kind of a slow processor right now, so I do think I have some questions, but not ready to really ask them right now, I think.
Brooke, I'll come back to you.
Okay.
How about you, David?
No questions, thank you.
Erin?
Hi, Cheryl. First of all, you know, all I hear are tremendous things about the services that you and your staff provide. So, I mean, just huge kudos to you. I mean, even I was in the dog park the other day and people were talking about the amazing services that you and your team provide. So huge kudos. On a technical note, when you say our numbers of 12.3 and then 8%, do those include 504 plans or are those just IEPs? They're just the IEPs. You're muted, but I hear you saying no and yes.
I am so sorry. I didn't realize I got muted. No, does not include students with 504s.
Okay. And so do the kids with 504s, are they also served by the same staff that fall under kind of you and the special ed?
That's a good question. So if students have needs such as an occupational therapist for fine motor or a speech and language pathologist, the special education staff are supporting that. The special education teachers are typically not the ones providing those supports, but they will consult and of course be giving as much help as they can to the classroom teachers. But that's really the difference is the specialized instruction is the special ed teachers for IEP and the 504, the related services they do have.
And do we have a sense of what our percentage of 504 kids with 504s are compared to kind of statewide? Do you know?
You know what, Mr. Sapia, the assistant principal, is the one who oversees the 504, so I don't have that specific information right now, but I'm sure we can get that for you.
Okay, that'd be awesome. And then my other question along with that is, I know you said that we have an increasing number of kids who are requiring one-on-ones. Do you know where our numbers land? Again, just kind of comparison. I think what I'm trying to overall figure out is kind of the staffing needs that you have and that your program needs, and I don't know that you would even call it a program, but the special education needs of our school. And you know, how are our one-on-one numbers comparatively to the state? I know you said we have less maybe percentage of special ed kids with IEPs, but how are our one-on-one compared to the state?
That's a good question. So we had made a conscientious effort and had a vision of building capacity in-house. So our out-of-district placement numbers are significantly lower than most places around the state. With that said, in order to successfully provide for those students in school, we are providing more one-on-ones. But if you look at what they're able to access in the general ed curriculum, being in the supports that they're getting in our school, the benefits to those students is incredible. But it does also cost-wise, it's less expensive for us to support them in the school, not to mention the fact that they're getting more of what they need. So we do, as far as how many one-on-ones, I can't speak to that, but I know that we have less students in out-of-district placement, which is why we have as many one-on-ones as we do have.
Okay, yeah, at some point, I know, I mean, I'm sure the numbers are, it'd just be helpful as we kind of figure out. And then the other thing is I know testing takes a ton of time, as do the IEPs. What is kind of the general assumption of, a special ed teacher? And I know that each kid requires such uniqueness, but each psychologist or each teacher is kind of, what is a typical caseload, for lack of a better term, that is appropriate in a school district?
Right, it depends on the students. So some of our higher need students, the classrooms may range from 5 to 8 or 9. And it really depends on the classroom space, on the student needs, all the way up to, we have approximately, I'd say our highest right now is 19 or 20. And it really depends on, so number of students is very different than if you look at the number of hours and services that they need. So one student might only need half an hour of services a day. Another one might be getting 4 hours a day of services. So it really, it's the caseload and what their needs are versus the actual number of students.
Okay, no, that makes sense. It's hard when you're not in your world to fully grasp it. But again, thank you so much for the work that you and your team do. It's really, it's huge for our district. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Jay, any questions tonight for Cheryl?
Thank you, Cheryl. That was really important. I learned quite a lot about special ed there that I didn't know coming on to this. So one of the things you did raise is that bringing students who we were outplacing back into the school was a big benefit from a financial perspective, as well as from a social and emotional perspective, and having some coordination as well. But I would think that over time, that would diminish. So you're getting to a point where it's either very costly or very hard. So when when students come into our district who require extensive support, there's a decision that has to be made whether they stay in or go out. And so what I've noticed is, from the money perspective, I've noticed we've done very, very well over the last 5 years in terms of bringing people in. But I always see things in terms of diminishing returns as well. So as we get to a very small number, the specialism gets more needy and it becomes very costly, and as well as us not being able to provide that fully. And so what you did mention was that the numbers had declined. How much had they declined by over the years?
The number of students who were in out-of-district placement?
Yeah.
So without breaching confidentiality, because it could be identifiable because our numbers are so small, but we decreased it by about 85%.
Okay. And has that taken sort of resource from the general population? So using more classrooms, you're using more space?
So right now, yes, it is more space, especially with the specialized classrooms. Typically, you can have resource room teachers share a space. Right now with COVID, we are expanded because you can't, you have to have the 3 feet. And even if you have 4 students, that still takes up a lot of space. So it does take more rooms in the building, but it in normal times, it doesn't take as much as we're taking right now.
Okay, so in normal times, you would suggest we resort back to some equilibrium. At the moment, we're stretched.
Right now, we're stretched for space, absolutely. But when I came in, and even right before COVID, we had resource room teachers sharing classrooms, and it worked out fine.
And last but not least, you had a forecast for next year.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it was about the same 12%. So I'm looking at the numbers and I'm looking at about 10 to 12% on average over the years. And so you said it's going to go up a little bit. So when I look at the numbers don't seem to move that much. I'm looking at 80, 87, 85. They seem to be volatile in a sense. So there is some static equilibria there. Am I correct?
There is, but we're seeing a trend towards increasing to larger numbers. We've been lower than the state for years. But we are seeing higher needs coming in, and we're seeing, you know, more intense needs as well as higher numbers coming in. So I know that we are graduating a large class of students who have a lot of needs. And so that's why I kept that in mind with what I know is coming in.
Thank you.
And I'll just say that there's a lot of, I can make a prediction, but someone could move in tomorrow, or 10 people could move in tomorrow and they have IEPs, and we would have to honor that.
Thank you, Jay. Jeff?
Thank you, Cheryl. Great presentation as expected. It always amazes me the work you and your team do. Jay touched on my space question. During a normal time, COVID aside, do you see space becoming an issue here?
It definitely could be an issue. I mean, we have our 4 classroom with high need. They need to each have their own space. So that does have an impact. We are very creative with things, but it definitely could have an impact.
Great. And then do you have any data on our open choice program? How many of our open choice students require special instruction?
Dr. Butt will take this part, I think. You wanna, oh, I thought you said you wanted to take that part? Oh.
Jeff, we have some information on that. However, it starts to become identifiable because there's a relatively small amount of students in open choice, 18 total, and thus any subset of them is a very small number. And a flux of 1 or 2 students dramatically affects the percentage. But I think I could say, if you'd be okay with this answer, that there is at the moment, our percentages of students from the open choice program requiring special education servicing is higher than the number that we have in the total population. But that could simply be attributable to various things. So I wouldn't want to make some big conclusion on the record about that, if that will be okay for tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And please don't open us for any risk. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, it's just
Thanks, Jeff. Maria?
Thank you, Lynn, and thank you, Cheryl, for all of your work with the presentation and with our district and with our students. I guess my only question, which might be more applicable to a finance meeting, would be, how do we support you and your team, you know, as you reach these challenging numbers of students and as we look towards the future? I think that would be my question, and that might not be able to be answered right now, and that's okay, but just something to think about, you know, for the future. How can we best support you and your team?
I would say that right now, as long as we're meeting the needs of our students, and if the planning and placement team, they make a decision, the way that the law is, if the planning and placement team makes a decision and they say this is what a student needs, that understand that there are unexpected things that may come up that I cannot budget for, but they're in need of a student. So then be able to support that and understand that it's, you know, I can budget and plan as well as I can, but unexpected costs, unexpected needs, you know, a student might be doing well and then something can happen and we need to address that. So be able to appreciate the fluctuations and that we are doing everything proactively that we can. But if we say that there is a need, it truly is a need. Thank you, though, for asking that.
Thank you, Maria. And I'll just piggyback that answer, Cheryl, which was so good. But I do know that historically, when we have had a change in our special education census, that the town, and that hasn't been budgeted for, that the town has been very supportive in that case. And I think we have support from the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen on those needs, and so they recognize that. So just a little additional information because the public's listening. We appreciate the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen support when needed. Mike?
Yeah, I think, Cheryl, that was a very thorough presentation. So thank you again for that. I don't have any other questions. The questions I did have were addressed.
Thank you.
Perfect. Sarah Beth?
The same. The questions I had have been addressed, but thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
And Brooke, I think you're good, right?
Yep. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Cheryl, again, thank you for your time and for answering our questions and for the information that you provided us with tonight. I think it was really educational for many of the people on the board and gives us a lot to think about. So I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time. And again, I just want to reiterate the team, the special education team is really working hard to advocate for the students and meet their needs. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank them as well. Pass our thanks on. Lisa, you're next. And it's only 9:50, I think. Imagine that.
Imagine that. All right. Thank you, everybody. So I just have a few quick updates. The first is I actually have a few updates about some committees. I always love this time of year because it's like the school year is going. We're all in it. It's happening. We're moving forward. We're digging into the work. It's all really, really quite exciting. So just a few quick updates. We do have a professional development and evaluation committee meeting, PDEC. We have one of those coming up very, very soon, and we're so excited to get the teachers together and talk about our school goals and plan out some of our upcoming professional development days. Quick side note, we do have some coming up in November, so any families listening in, make sure you check your calendars so that you know when those no school days are. But we're really excited to get the PDEC committee together to begin planning for some of these upcoming professional development days that we have and making sure that we're continuing to focus on our school goals around culturally responsive teaching and technology and literacy and social studies, all the good work that we have lined up for us this year. Another committee that is going to meet this week actually is our Safe School Climate Committee. This committee is really focusing in on our bullying policy, especially around our students' social emotional needs and sort of how we can continue to take care of the climate and culture of our school. So that committee is coming up meeting on Thursday, and we're going to be having some regular meetings throughout the school year as we usually do. We're kind of excited to get all of our committees up and running again. Actually, last year we weren't able to meet as often. So Safe School Climate Committee is going to be meeting this week and having regular meetings moving forward. Another important committee that will be meeting is our diversity committee. Dr. Budd mentioned earlier at the start of the meeting how there was a diversity book nook happening at the Woodbridge Like Me town event, and that was organized by some of our committee members. They really came together to pull off a really beautiful display and a lovely opportunity for our students to gather and read books. But the diversity committee will be meeting next week, actually, and we're going to be making sure that we really set a focus for the school year and really begin collaborating and generating ideas around that focus to make sure that we're moving our work forward. Enough with committees. I also want to just mention two more points really quickly. A huge shout out to the Woodbridge Fire Department. They came once again for their yearly visit to our primary age students, and I wish you could have seen the cuteness of the little kids leaving the building with their fire hats on. It was the cutest thing in the world. So really a great big thank you to the Woodbridge Fire Department. We're so grateful for their collaboration, and they brought the truck. The kids got to climb inside. They learned about fire safety. It was really a wonderful experience for all of the kiddos, and we're just so incredibly grateful that the team of volunteers came out and worked with our students. Another quick update is coming up soon. We will actually be making some changes to our drop-off and pickup procedures. And really the change is to continue to ensure student safety. So what we will be doing is instituting an identification process. Our goal is to make it so that we don't have to ask parents for identification every single time, but rather we're going to take a couple of days to check IDs, and I give you a very special Beecher Road school sign, and that will ensure that we have checked your ID, we know that you're allowed to pick up the child that you're assigned to, and we won't have to do that every single day. So it is just another safety protocol that we are putting in place. So that will be coming out soon. A letter about that process detailing some of the specifics will be coming out soon. So again, our goal is to really just do that ID check once and then give you a very special sign so we can just see the sign and know that you're good to go and you get to collect your child. So that will be coming out soon. Some information about that will come out by the end of this week, and we'll launch that very soon. I think that's it for me, unless there's any questions.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm happy to hear that the volunteer firemen have come back and had an outdoor field trip for the little guys, because that's always so much fun.
Yes, definitely outdoors, because obviously COVID protocols, we had to follow them, but also because it was a big fire truck, which you can't get inside. So it worked out perfectly.
Well, that's nice. A little bit of normalcy. Are there any questions from board members? I won't call individually, but if anyone has a question, jump in. Go ahead, Brooke.
Hi, Lisa. Is there a possibility of having volunteers do the pickup and drop off line as well to kind of relieve the teachers of that duty? Because it seems they're running, people get there kind of late. Sometimes that's me. But so the teachers aren't running back to the classrooms and then having to miss out if a class starts at 8:40, they may not be there. So can we use volunteers for that?
That's so nice of you, Brooke. I appreciate you making that suggestion. I will say that the staff members that are there none of them are classroom teachers. So they are all people who are available to be there a little bit longer. But I do appreciate that. I will mention that we are actually starting to lock the doors at 8:35. And by that, I mean, we stand down there for a little bit longer than that, but we are closing the doors at 8:35. And I stand down there and I let the last few kids in. But I think our parent population is getting much quicker, or we're getting much quicker. I know that our car volume has not decreased. I think our highest the other day was 334 cars that went through, which is, tremendous that we managed to do that in about 15-20 minutes. But I appreciate that suggestion, and Dr. Budd and I can certainly discuss it further moving forward. And but rest assured that all the teachers out there are not due to be with students right away at 8:20. So thank you, though.
Any other questions for Lisa? As always, Lisa, thanks for everything. Joy, finally. 3B, PTO update. Thanks for hanging on for us.
Thanks for having me. Good evening, everyone. We've had a really busy start to the school year. The PTO held Picture Day on September 27th, 28th, and 29th. We'd like to thank all of the parent volunteers who helped make it go so smoothly. We look forward to seeing the pictures when they come out next week. They should be going home next week. And for those who missed out or are interested in getting retakes, we'll be rescheduling that or scheduling the photographers to come in once again sometime in early November. And we'll send a school-wide update once we have a date confirmed. We are in our final week of our Charleston Wrap fundraiser. And if you haven't had a chance to order their amazing wrapping paper or their gifts, there's still time. You just need to simply register at registercw.com, and our organization number is 23446. I just wanted to make another note about bus driver appreciation. BRS parents recently reached out on our PTO Facebook page and expressed interest in doing something special to say thank you to our wonderful bus drivers. So sponsored by our whole community, and with PTO funding, there will be a nice surprise that will be given out to the bus drivers this week, which, as Dr. Budd mentioned earlier, is officially Bus Driver Appreciation Week. Children are also encouraged to say their own thank yous by writing a note or drawing a picture. We plan to give our lovely bus driver his favorite cookies that we've been baking him for years. But most importantly, being well behaved is the best way to say thank you to our bus drivers. We've been selling an unprecedented amount of beachwear. I think we sold over $2,000 worth of beachwear since July. I think it has to do with, we've been apart and we've had a ton of new people move to town and they want their beachwear. On October 2nd, we had a PTO table with beachwear for sale at the town event, the Diversity Inclusion Committee's event, Woodbridge Like Me. And for those of you who weren't able to attend it, it was really wonderful. I'm looking forward to when they can do that again. We were able to have our annual harvest hike on Wednesday, October 6th. Just so you know, we were not able to have that in 2019 because of this crazy mosquito outbreak thing. And then 2020, of course, it was canceled because of COVID, but it was really nice to be able to have it. It was a small group, only 20 or so hikers came out to join us on October 6th at Alice Newton Memorial Park. But the cool thing was it was almost all kindergartners and new families. So it was really nice to meet them, and the PTO provided apples from Norton Brothers Orchard for the hike. We also want to thank our wonderful library staff and RJ Julia Bookstore for helping us host more virtual author visits this year. Last week, we had author Ava Chen visit our kindergarten through second grade students. I hear the visits were incredibly interactive and fun for all. And this week, on October 20th, we have Lisa McMahon, who's the author of Clarice the Brave. Looks like an amazing book. And she'll be visiting our 3rd through 6th graders. The big news of the night here, and please just bear with me, I know you're all tired, but on behalf of Rushi Jean and Terry Landau, this year's WHO co-chairs, I'd like to invite everyone to join us for one of Beecher Road School's longest standing and most loved traditions and one of our largest fundraisers, the Halloween Hoot. This year, the Halloween Hoot will be a creepy crawling drive-through hoot, and it'll be on Saturday, October 30th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. with a rain date of October 31st. There's going to be a pumpkin parade, a scavenger hunt. There's going to be fun and spooky displays by sponsors, parents, and school staff. I've heard that Town Line Farm and Macero Community Farm is going to be there. Principal Sherman will be there. I've heard that members of our very own Woodbridge Board of Ed will be there, the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, and my daughter and I are looking forward to our last year at Beecher as mother and daughter nature, and hope that we have a really great turnout for that. There's going to be a Hoot silent auction. This is where the money comes in, and that's going to start this Sunday, October 24th. And the auction website is 32auctions.com/Halloween Hoot 2021. Families can also drop off their carved or decorated pumpkins over at Beecher's South School's lower parking lot after pickup on Friday afternoon, October 29th, or Saturday morning, October 30th, between 8 and 12. Simply set a few flameless LED candles inside each pumpkin, along with your name, grade level on a slip of paper if you are from the school and want to reclaim it. And then if you want, you can pick up those pumpkins on Sunday, October 31st by 3 p.m., or they'll be donated. This year's event is free. It's open to all, but a suggested donation of $20 per car is going to be happily accepted. You can donate cash at the entrance or pay online via PayPal, and all of the proceeds go directly to the school enrichment programming, events, and more that the PTO provides. For more details, you can go to the Hoots website, and that is at halloweenhoot.org. Last but not least, we are always looking for parent volunteers. Currently, we're looking for a recording secretary, a co-chair of fundraising, and a enrichment chair or co-chairs of enrichment. So if anyone you know is looking for ways to get involved with PTO events and fundraisers, please let them know to be on the lookout for our Beecher PTO Parent Volunteer Survey, which is going to be coming out soon. That's all I have tonight.
Joy, thanks so much. It sounds like you guys are just as amazing as ever. And we thank you for all that you do to support the school. And I think that I've heard, you know, rumblings in the community about the excitement about the Halloween hoot. So stay tuned, because hopefully our board will be represented a bit this year. A little new endeavor for us.
Well, thanks
So-
for all that you do as well. And, you know, we're just happy to be able to provide some fun in these kind of challenging times. So thanks. You guys are doing the hard work, and we appreciate that.
Thanks, Joy, and thanks for hanging in with us tonight.
I'm going to sign off now to go be with my little one.
Good for you.
It's very late.
Have a good night.
I don't know how you do it. Good night.
3C on the agenda is the Board of Selectmen update. Ms. McCrevin is unable to be with us this evening, so we're moving on to 3D, upcoming meeting presentations. November's board meeting will include a presentation on capital planning and BRS needs. So in light of the time, I'm going to ask board members that if you have anything specific that you would like to see addressed in this presentation, you can either email me or Dr. Budd, and we'll be certain that those concepts, issues, questions are addressed in the presentation. I think that seems fair for the time. So now we'll move on to curriculum committee report. Mike, do you have anything for curriculum committee other than the next meeting?
Nope, we have not met since the last time we had a board meeting. Our next meeting is November
4th.
November 4th. Yes.
4:00 p.m. Thanks, Mike. Jeff, facilities committee report.
Yes, we met on October 5th, 7:30 a.m. To be terse, we went over Vito's report. He did his typical repairs, nothing out of the ordinary. School looks good. We then kind of started formulating a plan for moving some items to capital projects and working with the newly formed ad hoc committee. That being the JACE, essentially the computer for the HVAC system, drainage in A wing, and the roof issues in K wing kind of came up. We started formulating a plan to work together with the ad hoc committee on that. And then after the meeting, we had an unexpected repair of our dual temperature loop, but Vito quickly addressed that with no further issues. That would be it for me.
Thanks, Jeff. And board members, you'll note that now Vito's monthly report will be included in the board packet so that everybody can be aware of the amazing work that the custodial team is doing to keep our schools safe and healthy and clean. The next meeting of the facilities committee is Tuesday, December 7th at 7:30 a.m. Finance committee, Jay?
We met on October the 14th at 4:33. There was no action taken, no motions proposed. There was one recommendation from the Finance Committee that I'll address in a few minutes. Superintendent Budd and Richard Huot, who's the Business Operations Interim Manager, presented 3 items: the budget narrative, the budget report, and the detailed budget report for November the 1st. Superintendent Budd also presented an overview on students and financial needs. And he also offered a sort of summary on summer enrichment and extended day programs. I'm going to quickly, very, very quickly, just touch on each of those points. So the first point was last month I mentioned in the finance report, we meet monthly. So the last month I mentioned in the finance report that there was a surplus. There was a miscommunication to the board that suggested that 2% of the surplus could be carried forward by the school under the general statute. So very quickly, we discussed this at the meeting, and at the meeting we came to the same conclusion that we did last month, that the funds should be remitted back to the town. Now here, I think I just want to reiterate what Lynn had said earlier. Unlike in many school districts, we're fortunate to have a very strong relationship with the town. And this has played a pivotal role in supporting the school financially in the past. And we heard this when we talked about special ed. So we continue to recommend to the board that the surplus be returned back to the town. Very quickly on the budget report for October the 1st, it's a little too early to comment on anything there. I think as we get through the first quarter, and Richard discussed this, we'll have more information on the variances. Things will settle down, like staffing, which is still volatile at the beginning of the semester. Jonathan did an excellent presentation on how students with financial needs could apply for support, or families with students with financial needs could apply for support. Now, for me, there was some interesting statistics he presented. It was about 1 in 8 of our student population receives free or reduced price lunch in our school district. And so if you want more information on how to access these resources, then there's a link on the district website. More importantly, you can contact Jonathan or Lisa. And I believe I saw, is it Miss Reddy on this line as well? I think here Miss Reddy's on, and you can contact her as well with respect to that information. Jonathan also touched on information in the classroom and student families with financial needs. And again, he talked extensively about Picture Day Relief Fund, which the PTO supports, the School Action Committee, Extended Day financial support. And I'd like to mention here that I'd really like to thank the PTO for all the excellent work they do. I'd also like to thank WASA and the Rotary Club, who provide financial support and make funds available to support our families and students with financial needs. Now, last but not least, we're going to kick off the budget planning. Rather than start it off in December, I think, in consultation with Jonathan, I think it's better to start it early so we get an overview first. We have a month to ask questions and come back to the meeting and then go through it in detail. 2 quick things. Richard informed us that we're very, very lucky to have solar and alternative energy in the school that mitigates excessive energy costs. We all know how much gas and fuel is skyrocketing at the moment. And as Jeff just mentioned, the Capital Investment Committee and the Finance Committee would look at maintenance and upgrade costs, for example, switching modules that could switch lights off automatically, etc. And so these are the things that we had. And our next meeting for everybody is at 4:30, November the 9th. See you all there. Thank you.
Jay, thanks so much. Great report. Policy committee report. The policy committee's been very busy this month, so you'll note that we have a lot of action that needs to be taken. And so I'm going to ask our policy committee chair, Ms. Madonic, to report on that committee's activity.
Thank you, Lynn. The policy committee met on October the 11th, and we discussed the 5 policies that are being brought to the board today. We also discussed the adoption of a civility policy, which we are continually working on. We will continue to work on that at a special meeting on November 10th. And then our next regular meeting will be on December 14th. For the 5 policies that we discussed and that are before the board today, these are all recommendations and updates to policies based on federal and state statutes, and they're bringing us up to date with those. So Dr. Budd, should I turn that over to you to present?
Sure, Maria. Do you want me to explain each one first before a motion is made, or do you want a motion first? Or Lynn, what's your preference there? Either of you.
I think, Jonathan, if you just give us a little update on the policy, then we'll take the motion. And
right.
Hopefully, if there's any discussion, that'll follow the motion.
The first one, which is 2 policies that are identical on travel and self-quarantine. during the COVID-19 pandemic. This policy, because it's a temporary COVID policy, is written that it must be reviewed quarterly by the policy committee. And the only change we're recommending is a removal of the first sentence in each policy. The current first sentence in each policy references that the CDC recommends against travel during COVID-19, and that's not actually currently the case. It's more subtle than that, and in fact, this is kind of a moving target. So rather than summarize or try to summarize what the CDC believes, we feel that the recommendation is just to cite the reference to the CDC website and the State Department website, and people can go there to see the evolving guidance.
Great. Maria, do you want to make a motion?
Yes. I make a motion that we adopt policy 4118.238, 4218.238, and 5141.81, the travel and self-quarantine during COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you, Maria. Do I have a second? Erin, seconded. Motion made by Maria, seconded by Erin. Any discussion? Okay, so I'm gonna, because this is policy, I'm gonna get my little piece of paper and call the roll. Maria,
Yes.
Sarah Beth,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Brooke,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Erin,
Yes.
and I vote yes, it's unanimous. Marcia, thank you. Moving on to the next one, Dr. Bud.
This is a quartet of policies from different sections of our manual related to non-discrimination in various contexts. But the point is, all of these policies have been updated by what you see in red, which comes from Connecticut Public Act 21-2. And essentially, this Public Act has expanded or clarified, if you will, the protected class of race by linking it explicitly to ethnic traits, including but not limited to hair texture and protective hairstyles. And then the term protective hairstyles is also defined by the Public Act. The language you see there in red comes straight from the state statutes. We are required to abide by it so that we are in compliance with Connecticut anti-discrimination law. The only other change I would point out is to the final one of these four, 5145.4. Reviewing this revealed that there were two other protected classes not in this policy that should be, that are in the others, and they are ancestry and genetic information. So there's also an update in 5145.4 to add those two protected classes. So as Maria said, the straight from the law on these.
Maria, do you want to make a motion?
Thank you, Dr. Bud. I make a motion to adopt policy 0521, 2111, 4118.11, and 4218.11, as well as 5145.4, all within the realm of non-discrimination.
Do I have a second? Sarah Beth? Is there any board discussion? I'll call the roll. Maria,
Yes.
Sarah Beth,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Brooke,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Erin,
Yes.
and I vote yes, it's unanimous. Marcia. Next, Dr. Bud.
Policy 4131 is the professional development policy, and the law also changed that connects to this policy. This is Public Act 2146, and it requires that some attention in professional learning in every public school district be linked to student social and emotional learning, in addition to academic outcomes. So the red language you see there mirrors the revised statute as well.
Thank you.
Great,
Maria?
thank you. Yes, thank you, Dr. Budd. I make a motion to adopt policy 4131 with regards to professional development.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Jay? Motion made by Maria, seconded by Jay. Is there any discussion? Call the roll. Maria?
Yes.
Sarah Beth?
Yes. Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I vote yes, it's unanimous, Marcia. Next, Dr. Budd?
Policy 4212.42 is a federally mandated policy on drug and alcohol testing and other required training for school bus drivers. And you'll see 3 new paragraphs. The first new paragraph is a paragraph that really already should have gone in back in 2018. And this is a requirement about how our school bus drivers, whether they work for us or our owner operators, must be trained on life-threatening allergic reactions. And this gives me the opportunity to say everything I'm going to say is true about our owner operators, but we are just codifying it in the policy. The last 2 paragraphs are what's new based on some changes to the federal regulations. And now when a new commercial driver's license is issued, there is a clearinghouse at the federal level to make sure or ensure that the driver is safe in all sorts of ways to be driving. And previously, this was not cleared at the federal level, but doing it at the federal level was seen by the government as a good method to ensure that people who should not be bus drivers don't just travel from one state to the next. So that's about the most succinct summary I can give of this one. And other than to say, we've worked with our BOA transportation coordinator, and they're in full compliance and in support of this language as well.
Thank
you,
you.
Dr. Budd. I make a motion to adopt policy 4212.42.
Do I have a second? Sarah Beth? Motion made by Maria, seconded by Sarah Beth. Any discussion? I'll call the roll. Maria?
Yes.
Sarah Beth?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I vote yes, it's unanimous, Marcia. Last one, Dr. Budd.
61.51, surveys and screening of students. This is a federal required policy based on the Hatch Amendment, the Pupil Rights Amendment, and essentially the main purpose of this policy is to clarify parents' rights when students take surveys. There's a couple of other parts of it. But in the middle of page 1, you'll see that based on federal law, if we were going to survey students on any of 8 particular topics, parental consent is required, and that is an adjustment to our policy. Our current policy says parental notification, but in fact, parents have to actively consent if a student were to be given a survey on any of these topics, which I have to say we are not giving surveys on these topics, but if we were, that parents would have to give consent. The other paragraphs you see in red are also requirements of the Hatch Amendment, and a couple of them I would just highlight for the record. If the district were to want to employ a survey from an outside organization, it must have approval from the superintendent and the board. That's a federal law. In addition, parents have the right to inspect surveys that their children take. And finally, parents have the right to inspect any educational material, any instructional material used as part of the curriculum. That's a paragraph you see at the top of page 2, and any parent can make a request for that. It must be granted, and that's a federal right that every parent has. And in fact, representing all of the amendment, the Pupil Rights Amendment in this policy is better than just representing part of it. So I would support the CABE recommendation to incorporate everything.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. I'd like to make a motion to adopt policy 6162.51, surveys and screening of students.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Jay? Motion made by Maria, seconded by Jay. Is there any board discussion? I'll call the roll. Maria?
Yes.
Sarah Beth?
Yes.
Jay?
Yeah.
Brooke?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I vote yes, it's unanimous, Marcia. Thank you, board members. Maria, anything else for policy?
No, just that we will be having a special policy meeting on November 10th to talk about the civility policy, which will hopefully then go to the full board for review. And our next regularly scheduled meeting is December 14th.
Thank you so much, Maria. Moving on. 3.I. Woo. Ad hoc capital plan committee. Dr. Budd, turning it over to you.
Well, I might just say on this one that we had a meeting scheduled this past Thursday night of the Ad hoc Capital Plan Committee. The board representatives to that committee are Mr. Hughes and Dr. Daya, but the meeting had to be rescheduled based on an unavoidable personal emergency, and we don't yet have that rescheduled date, but we're sure to update the board when we do.
Thank you. Ad hoc Security Personnel Committee.
We are working out the meeting date for that committee. Those board representatives are Ms. Madonic and Ms. Hopkins, and we are establishing the date. Both of these committees involve several very busy people in the community, so setting the meeting dates is the biggest challenge, it turns out, of having the meetings, but stay tuned.
Thank you. Ad hoc Student Culture and Community Committee report, Dr. Strambler.
Yeah, so we met on September 27th at 4 p.m. We covered a few different topics. The first one had to do with the professional development that was conducted over the summer that focused on a program called Choose Love that was developed by Scarlett Lewis. She's a mother who lost her son during Sandy Hook. And this program has a number of different lessons, 5 lessons that were emphasized during that training, and teachers have been teachers have been asked to focus on at least 3 of those lessons throughout the year. We also talked about the meet and greet that happened prior to school starting, and some of the feedback that was received from that. It seems like the feedback has been very positive, both from students and from families, and seems to have contributed to a positive transitioning, especially of remote students back into school. The third thing we did during that meeting was to go into a little more in depth into looking at some of the surveys that were administered to students and to families last year. So the last full board meeting, we did a kind of a bird's eye view of some of those responses, and we looked at some more in-depth responses, both from students and from families within specific domains, in particular the school climate domains. Just some brief highlights there in terms of the student climate indicators. Students in general think that the energy is positive. 88% of students reported that. They think that the rules are fair. 78% indicated that. They think that teachers are generally excited. 81% indicated that they agreed with that. An area of growth is that students reported that other students' behavior seems to interfere with their learning. So about 40% of students indicated that on the survey. Regarding family responses, again, starting with some of the more positive responses, families, the first thing to note though is that we had a relatively, this was mentioned earlier, relatively small parent response rate. Small in terms of the entire population. The rate is relatively comparable to what you'll find at other schools. So, parents reported that children seem to enjoy going to school. That's 81%. That students respect the staff. 92% of parents indicated that. Teachers, and that teachers have respect for students. 94% indicated that. One area of growth here is that 57% of families indicated that the school seems to value students' diverse backgrounds. So that's we talked about that a little bit as an area of growth. Our next meeting is next Monday at 4 p.m.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions from board members about that? Wonderful. CABE liaison report. I think Maria is going to give the CABE liaison report this month.
Yes, thank you, Lynn. I just have a couple things to report about upcoming meetings. On October 27th, there are a few of us going to the legal issues workshop that CABE is presenting in Rocky Hill, Connecticut. And then the CABE, in conjunction with the Society for Public School Superintendents, that meeting on November 12th. It is full. I think they had a greater response than they initially thought. It's an in-person meeting, and they, before the deadline closed, they closed out the attendance at that meeting. So we're going to look into seeing if there's some online options, some hybrid options for attending that meeting, and we'll update the board if there are, in case anybody does want to attend remotely, if they do open up that possibility. And then on the night before that CABE conference, there's a CABE delegate assembly from 3 to 6 p.m. With a legislative update. So we'll have to discuss if there's anyone able to make that meeting from 3 to 6 p.m. and if that registration is still open. So we could have a delegate go to that meeting as well.
Thank you, Maria. So if anyone is interested in being a delegate, if you'd let Maria or Sarah Beth know, we'll do what the rest that needs to be done, which is appointing you as a delegate to the delegate assembly for CABE. Thanks.
And we all should, you're welcome. And we all should have gotten something in the mail from CABE that outlines what they're going to talk about at that delegate assembly. And that is going to be from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. In Groton at the Marriott, where the other conference is being held.
Yeah, Mystic Marriott in Groton, right. Thank you. Okay, we're up to number 4. I'm going to make a motion that we modify tonight's new business agenda and add under new business 4.b, acceptance of certified staff retirement. Do I have a second for that motion? Maria? I hate to do this, but because I can't see everybody, I'm going to call the roll one more time for modifying tonight's agenda. Maria?
Yes.
Sarah Beth?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
David?
I don't understand what we're being asked to vote on. What are you modifying?
Modifying the agenda to add a 4B, which
It's already
is,
on the agenda, isn't it? I see 4B accept certified staff retirement. What are we talking about?
it wasn't on the agenda that was posted according to the time frame of
I see. You're adding what's
legal-
currently showing in board book. Yes, fine.
right, legally, right.
Yes,
Thank you. Mike,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
and I vote yes, it's unanimous. Good. So now we have a 4B under new business. 4A is adopt 2022, 2023 regular meeting dates. Dr. Bud, do you have anything you want to say about that?
No, I don't, unless there are questions.
Okay, thank you. So, one of the questions that, I had raised, from general public about the meeting dates was that, for instance, tonight Amity has a meeting planned. The reason Amity they changed their meeting date. They usually meet the Monday before we meet, but because of Columbus Day, they changed their date to tonight. They push it off a week. You will note on our regular meeting dates that we have to do the same thing both in January and in May. We changed the January date to Tuesday because of Martin Luther King falls on the third Monday. And in May, we changed the date to Tuesday because the annual meeting falls on the third Monday of the month. This has historically been the way our board has functioned. So I just wanted to make it clear that it's not that we are scheduling our meetings for the same time that Amity is scheduling their meetings. It's that they change their meetings when there is a holiday that falls on the second Monday of the month. So I just wanted to make that clear for the general public and the board.
Is there a way to make a formal request that maybe they change when they need to their Tuesday so it doesn't conflict with ours at all? It's a challenge having children in different schools.
So I don't know, Dr. Budd, can you reach out to Amity, Dr. Byers, and see if the board is willing to do that?
I can tell you on their agenda tonight, and they may have gotten to it already, was also to adopt the 2022 meeting schedule. So they may have already done that at their meeting tonight, but I can see where they are with that and ask them if it's possible to adjust those dates that overlap with ours.
Great.
Yeah, maybe amend. Yeah, because I do think it's difficult and we should, out of respect for people who have kids in both districts, that would be helpful. All right, I'll look for a motion to adopt then our proposed regular meeting dates for 2022 and 2023.
Just some quick out of the box thinking for discussion. If they already adopted theirs, can we hold off on ours and then maybe just change if there's any conflicting dates? I think it's important parents have non-conflicting meetings, especially in a district so communal as ours.
Okay, I mean, that's a possibility. We could have that motion to table a vote until we check in with Amity and see about their willingness. I'll entertain a motion for that as well. I'll entertain any motion somebody wants to make.
I will make that motion.
So is your motion, Sarah Beth, that we table action on adopting the 2022-2023 regular meeting dates?
Yes.
Okay, I thought that's what it was. Do I have a second to that motion? Brooke? Okay, I'm gonna just try this and can you raise your hand if you're in favor of that motion? 1,
Yes, I'm in favor.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Do I have everybody? Ooh,
Yeah, David was verbal, but yeah.
Okay, I think it's unanimous, Marcia. Great. All right, Jonathan, you've already spoken to
I did, yes.
the acceptance of the certified staff retirement of Bill Lech. I'm going to move that we accept the retirement of William Lech effective October 31st, 2021 with much regret. Do I have a second? Jay? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Great, thank you. That's unanimous. I was able to count to 9 that time. Isn't that amazing? And I want to publicly thank Bill for his years of service. I think that anyone who had a child who went through the school while Bill was the instrumental music teacher and their child benefited from his expertise and talents, we're very lucky people. So we wish Bill the best, and I hope that he finds retirement as exciting as I do. Public comment. Is there any public comment?
Yes, Lynn.
Yeah.
Mr. Gelder, yep.
Okay, Mr. Gelner, I believe I read the statement and when you spoke earlier, so I'm not going to read it again in the interest of time. But you have 3 minutes at this point in time too. Ms. Madonic will serve as our timer.
Thank you very much. So I'm not a doctor, but I was a nuclear medicine tech for many years, and my second degree is in health administration. So I spent about 15 years of my career working in the medical field in patient-facing and administrative roles. And the cornerstone motto of the medical field is to do no harm. And after listening to the comments tonight, it seems that it's almost inevitable that in the near future that parents are going to have to come to a crossroads and decide whether we want to A, inject our children with a vaccine from the pharmaceutical industry that stands to make billions and billions of dollars, that we have zero data on regarding long-term effects, that in its adult form has breakthrough cases galore happening all over the globe, or choice B, just letting their natural immunity do its job. And considering that with no vaccine being available yet for our children, their natural immunity by itself has led to a 99.98% survival rate for those children that were unfortunate enough to catch COVID. And again, thankfully, our rate for our student community was 100%. The national figure I just mentioned was from the American Academy of Pediatrics. That was from data just released on 10/14. So I would say that of these two choices, the one that has a far greater chance of actually causing harm to our children would be the vaccine. So I really hope that this is taken into consideration when you adopt vaccine policy in the future. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Geldner. Appreciate your comments. I hear another ding. So that are you putting your hand down or did somebody else ding? Do you see anyone else, Jonathan?
I do not see anyone else, no.
I don't either. So I'm going to assume we have no other public comment. So the board is going to enter into executive session in accordance with state statute for the purpose of discussions in regard to matters concerning collective bargaining and pending claims and litigation. For the public's information, it is expected that no action will be taken when the board returns to public session following the executive session. So I am looking for a motion to enter into executive session to discuss negotiations with respect to collective bargaining, as well as to discuss pending claims and litigation, and to invite the superintendent to join the board at that executive session. Do I have a motion, that motion? Sarah Beth? Do I have a second? Mike, thank you. All those in favor?
Yes.
Into executive session. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you. It's unanimous, Marcia. Marcia, we'll see you back in a little bit. Board, take 3 minutes. That's it, because it's late. We'll see you in executive session.
There you go.
8. Okay, so Marcia, just FYI, David was not in executive session. Okay, I think Sarah Beth made note of that in her notes, but just so you know too, Marcia.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so we're back in regular session at 11:31 p.m. And is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, good. Aaron's first hand up. Aaron made the motion. Second?
I see Jeff behind you.
Oh, Jeff is waving behind me. Okay. Jeff, you seconded. Aaron made the motion. All those in favor of adjourning at 11:31 p.m., please raise your hand. Please go to bed. Good night, everyone. Thank you very much. It's unanimous. Marcia, thank you for hanging on.